Hannah, you have your hand raised?
Yes, hello.
Hi.
Hi. I just wanted to make a comment about the bridge program before I speak. Before we start. I
Oh, I'm sorry, Hannah. Public comment has already closed. We have like about 20 people listed.
Oh, okay. I thought I had until 4 to do that.
Yeah, but we have so many people. I don't think we're going to have enough time for everyone to speak. But I'm going to put your name down just in case. Maybe someone will end early.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Mhm.
Daniel? Daniel, you going to come? Yeah, okay. What's up,
Hi.
Daniel?
Um, we're on public comment
No, we're
already?
not on public comment yet.
Oh, okay.
Wait for the yes, it's 4. We're about to begin, and then she'll introduce public comment, and then I'll read your name from the list, and then you can start speaking. And everyone has about a minute to speak. Since we have so many people, we're assigning 20 minutes for public comment. So I apologize in advance if I interrupt you, because I'm going to time each person. So it's 4 o'clock, and we're going to begin. Pauline?
Vivi can start presenting. I think we can get started. I'll lead us off until Anika joins us. So, sorry. Um, so hi everybody. We're getting ready to start the meeting. So welcome. I see there are a lot of new faces for what I can see on my screen. So Vivian, we can put it in presentation mode. We're recording, and we can start to the next slide. So our meeting is presented with our board who are pictured here. Anika is going to be joining us a little bit later, but our board members, one of our board members will attend this meeting. I'm not sure who's here. They're not voting members, but these meetings are presented in accordance with the board's awareness. So, all right, so next slide. And then, of course, here's the staff that actually may assist in presenting. We're not always here, but I know Sam is here today. Emily, Kathy, not sure if Sean is here. I'm just here until I'll be co-presenting with Anika when she gets here. So, next slide. And as a reminder, SBAC is an advisory committee, and you provide feedback to the superintendent in terms of budget balancing solutions. And then these solutions are taken to the board for their vote. So the final decisions on all our budget balancing solutions are actually board approved. But we take the advice of this committee and present that to the board as well. Next slide. And again, all our presentations are grounded in our mission and our 4 E's, excellence, equity, engagement, and enrichment. And with us focusing on our own finances, we need to ensure that we have an equitable lens when it comes to distributing our resources to our students. Next slide. So this is the agenda that we'll be going through today. We'll be doing public comments. And Vivian, how much time do we have for public comments this week? Is it? We said we set it to 20 minutes. So then we're gonna talk about some data, and then we're going to be looking at various phases and discussing, trying to bring back some information that the committee had asked for earlier. So Vivian, I'm going to turn it over to you for public comment.
Good night. Okay, so the first person for public comment is Miss Betty.
Oh, how much time do they have, Viv?
They each have a minute.
Ooh, okay.
Okay, all right.
Let me speed talk. Okay, so I updated the information that is in your shared folder. So a correction, we served this year 144 students, but that does not include 2 students that transferred out to other schools and also the loss we had earlier last semester. Currently, we have 51 ninth graders, 45 10th graders, 28 11th graders, and 20 12th graders. Speaking on unduplicated students, while I firmly believe that one should enroll in as much support as possible, each of the supports offer unique areas. Sometimes that means you combine supports. As a parent, if I could only choose one program, I would choose one that gives me the longest and most support. LEAP is a wonderful program, but is only for ninth graders. Puente is a class only for sophomores and juniors and offers strong cultural affinity support. Abbott offers academic support in class only. What about a student that needs wraparound services? RISE is on campus 5 days a week, and we assist in classrooms. We provide a place of refuge, a timeout. We're available to parents 5 days a week. Due to rising cost, we focused
Oh,
first.
sorry, Miss Betty.
Okay, sorry.
So the next person to speak is Howard. Howard, are you here? Howard from Rise.
Is
It's
that me, Miss Betty?
I think that's Zoe. Zoe just graduated from Howard.
Zoe's next. Oh, that's what Howard was. I thought it was someone named Howard.
Zoe is one of our graduates, and she just graduated Friday from Howard University.
Okay, Zoe, go ahead. You have 1 minute.
Okay, so Rise on Paper is a college prep and academic support program for low income Berkeley High School students. But to myself and so many others who are a part of the program, Rise is a safe space, a family, a sounding board for the many growing pains we experience as young adults, and somewhere that will provide you with a meal that otherwise you would not have received without them, and so much more. During my time as a Rise student, I received help building my first resume and applying for my first job with the Youth Works program, which led to many more job opportunities, one being a job at Target, which I held for 2 years before leaving for college. As a junior in high school, I made the transition to independent study, and this way of learning was more advanced and fast paced than the normal learning environment, and I struggled with math in particular. Through the RISE program, I received daily tutoring for my math class, which helped me to excel and pass with a B average. The help didn't stop there. My sophomore year of college, I was faced with taking calculus, which was a challenge for me. I immediately ran to call Wardell, which is a common theme at this point when it comes to math classes, and he set aside 2 hours to help me twice a week over Zoom to ensure that I passed the class, and I did. Beyond academic assistance, RISE provided me with the space to grow socially. Coming into high school, I was extremely introverted and reserved. When joining RISE, we were put through a summer prep program where we were introduced to our class that we'd be coming in with, and I was able to ease myself into the idea of making friends in high school. Anytime
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Zoe. Sorry to cut you off. We have a lot of people today. So, Mrs. Seal,
Hi,
go ahead.
good afternoon or good evening. I'm Zoe's mom, and I will condense this. So, RISE is a college success program, not just a college prep program. It doesn't just prepare students to get to college, it prepares them to succeed while they're there. Experiencing the RISE program teaches students to keep going. It shows them through practical application that being consistent in their studies, reaching out for support when needed, and helping each other can help them to succeed in their endeavors. The RISE philosophy is a prime example of we all do better when we all do better. As a community made up of so many diverse backgrounds, each with so much to offer, we need to continue to learn from and support each other. When we offer support to each other as a community, eventually everyone can surpass just surviving. We can all start thriving. I hope that you'll continue to support the RISE program so that they in turn can continue to support our youth. We often hear the phrase, I don't know what's wrong with kids these days. The RISE program directly contributes to what's right with kids these days. Thank
Okay,
you so
thank
much.
you. Thank you. So, for people who just logged in recently, public comment is closed. The next person, Alicia Betts.
Good afternoon. My name is Alicia Platt, and as the parent of 2 students who have been benefited tremendously from the College Brown program, Jasmine, who is now a junior at UC Berkeley, and Jacob, who is preparing for his own college journey, I urge you to continue to fund this vital program as you deliberate on the district's budget. College Bound has been instrumental in helping our family navigate the college admissions program, something that can be overwhelming. College Bound has helped Jacob grow not only as a student, but as a young man preparing for college. The guidance he's received from tutoring support in College Fresh is making a difference in his confidence about his academic ability. Beyond academic guidance, it has provided mentorship, college exposure, and emotional encouragement, things that make a lasting difference in students' lives. College Bound also helps us as parents feel informed and supported as we advocate for our scholars. This program works, it changes lives. Please keep College Bound fully funded so it can continue to open doors for BSU students and their families. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person is Miss Wilson. Aziri Wilson.
Hi, my name is Azir Wilson. I'm a single mother who moved to Berkeley last year with my son, Miles. We have no family in the area. College Bound, we were looking for a place to find a supportive community to become a part. College Bound is a place where we feel seen and heard. When we got to Berkeley, Miles was unsure of his future. He didn't know college was truly attainable for him. From our very first College Bound meeting, change happened within him. The positive core values they teach, the guidance they provide surrounding education and life skills, the experience they offer through genuine connection, the sense of community they build, the values they model and share through helping others, giving back with the community at large, the sense of pride and the self-accountability they help to instill in our students, our scholars, is priceless. The first College Bound meeting, I heard my son recite the self-affirmation pledge. When the words came out of his mouth, I believe in myself. I love myself. I know that I am College Bound. I was overcome with emotion. I knew we were right where we needed to be. In this past year, my son has grown immensely as a direct result of being part of College Bound program. To see my son grow through quiet hesitancy to the solid pride when saying those words means everything to me. He's admitted to 6 colleges, receiving honors and scholarship towards furthering his education, preparing to enter a 4-year university this fall. I hope that Berkeley schools will do more to promote and support this invaluable College Bound program. Our community needs this.
Thank you. Miles?
Hi, I'm Miles. Me and my mom moved here a year and a half ago, and I go to Berkeley Independent Study, which is it can be very isolating and very lonely, especially moving to a new school district this late in schooling. And College Bound has just given me a community, and it's made the whole usually overwhelming process, at least for me, of planning my future just so much easier, and it's just so much more feasible, and it's happening now, which it's just really exciting. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm sorry, what did you say?
Fund the program.
I said fund the program. Fund the program.
Okay. Thank you. Angie W.
Okay, hi, I'm speaking for my mom, Angela. Okay.
Okay.
Our experience with College Bound, as a family, we are incredibly grateful for the support and resources that College Bound has provided. Over the past 4 years, I have been actively involved with College Bound as a vice president. This role has allowed me to mentor peers and contribute to the community, which has been a transformative experience for me. Through the program, I have traveled to Los Angeles, Georgia, Washington, D.C. to look at colleges and see what they are all about. We would like to also to show our gratitude to Dr. Willis and the dedicated staff of College Bound. Their commitment in overpowering the students has helped many, including me, to gain the confidence to know that I am College Bound, and to keep funding this program, because it really helps a lot people like me who are struggling in school and actually have the resources to get to college. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Melinda King. Melinda.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you. I am also here in support of College Bound to have them funded. College Bound is a way that not only boosts student success, but it also improves high school graduation rates while increasing college enrollment among marginalized groups. And this is a program that is extremely important. Not only do they go through the A through G requirements of college, as Ngai said, they have taken our babies on tours. of colleges, UC campuses. So please, please, please make sure you are funding this program. It is essential to our community and marginalized groups.
Thank you. Next speaker is Ursula Sanders. Ursula Sanders.
I believe she's running late, but Zariah King is on the line.
Zariah King. I don't have her. Zariah King.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, go ahead.
My name is Zariah King. I'm the current president of College Bound. I'm also here to advocate for College Bound and them sticking around. College Bound is a program that not only encourages students to continue to persist in their college journey, but it also offers invaluable services like college literacy and financial literacy workshops. I can say that College Bound has played a significant role in boosting my confidence and academic success, and I truly hope that you guys continue to fund the program for years to come. And in addition, we're having our College Bound finale program, which I'd like to invite you guys to, where all of the current College Bound seniors, like myself, Guy, and Miles, are all revealing where we're going to college next year. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad you were able to speak because I couldn't get to you. James Willis.
He was just on for information purposes.
Okay. Nagay. Nagay? Guy. Sorry. Butchering your name. Are you still with us, Guy?
He just spoke. So
he spoke on behalf of someone else. So it's his turn, but I'm going to come back to him. Heidi Goldstein.
Thanks so much, Vivian. Hello, everyone. I'm Heidi Goldstein. I'm the chair of the BUSD Personnel Commission. We're the organization that is an independent, merit-based group that does hiring for the classified service, which supports our students in all kinds of ways, from bus drivers to janitors to after-school aides and those sorts of roles. I'm here to invite anyone who is interested to please come to our budget meeting tomorrow, the 15th at 11 a.m. at 1005 Parker Street, where we will be reviewing budget alternatives. And to let you know, those alternatives are different than what the SBAC has scored for the position that is currently vacant that they have removed and scored savings. So if you'd like to know our thinking, please do come to that meeting. We will also audio record it, and you can find it on our website, which is on the BUSD site under the HR department. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Willis?
Yes, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I just want to echo what the students and the parents are saying. This program has made an amazing difference in College Bound Berkeley. We are a partner under the African American Success Framework. 100% of our scholars have attended or have graduated from high school and had the choice of attending college and exceptional places. And as Zariah said, our president, this Saturday will be our finale program where they will reveal the prestigious universities they've been accepted to. 100% of our scholars have completed FAFSA. Many return. We also receive first-year scholars as well. 80% reported maintaining or increasing their overall GPA while being in College Bound. They have had an increase in attendance for the school board meetings. Our pre-assessments are talking about how often they visit their counselors. In the beginning, they said no. Our post-assessment afterwards, 84% now go and see their counselors. We're unique because we have an active parent engagement program that is really making a difference. We're building that self-esteem, academic excellence, community service, leadership development, and customized college tours. We are very excited to be in this district, and I think we are a one of a kind in the sense that we have an active, engaged parent and close relatives or caregivers that take care of the scholars. So please fund this program. We really, really need it. We appreciate you for letting us speak today.
Thank you. The next person is Polar Fisher.
Pilar, yes.
Pilar, sorry.
Yes, hi. So I am here to support College Bound as well. I am a parent. And this program is beyond valuable. Like Dr. Willis said, it is not only for the students, but it is for the parents as well. Since I've been in this program, we have gained so much knowledge. I have a 10th grader and a rising 8th grader. And yes, the 8th grader gets to join because her sister's in it. And so they get them from that age and they bring them up. And it's just a beautiful experience. The knowledge that I've received while being in this program is just immensible. It's beyond what anyone could ever imagine, because I'm learning things that I would have never learned. I didn't even learn these things when I was preparing for college. And it is for our community. I mean, there's not really much to say. Everybody has already taken the words out of my mouth for what I was going to say, but please, please continue to fund this program. It's a necessity in the Berkeley community. I also sit on many boards in the Berkeley community, and this is by far one of the best ones that we have going. So
Thank
please
you.
keep funding us.
Thank you. Jacob Platt? Jacob. Slade?
Hi. So I'm also here representing College Bound and asking that you still continue to fund the program, because for me, over the past 3 years, I've served as the president and secretary of College Bound, and I just think it's a great program that helps kids get access to college tours in and out of state, and like all the necessities and like requirements you need to be able to attend the four-year university of their choice, if that's like the path for you. Just making sure like you have the opportunity to do that. And I think that all the staff members make all the students feel welcome, and
Whitman is actually not.
they make
Can you
sure
mute?
that
Are you sure?
they make
Mel
sure
King?
that
I'm sorry, Jacob. Can you
oh
mute?
yeah, that's fine.
Okay, go ahead.
So yeah, I'm just saying that I feel like the program should continue to be funded because it's a great opportunity for all kids in high school or not before leading up to college.
Thank you. Okay, Leela?
Hi, would I be able to give my time to Hannah?
If you like.
Okay.
The hand is at the end, so I'm going to go to Iad.
Oh,
okay. That's you.
Oh, hello. My name's Eod. I'm a sophomore at Berkeley High. I wanted to ask you if you could create more space in the Bridge program without taking any funding away from other Bridge students. And I understand that this is a budget cut or a big ask with the budget cuts, but with the district's focus on equity and the big wait list, I ask you to hear the students and the families' requests and take action to prioritize the Bridge program. I've been on the wait list for like a year and a half, and Bridge has like a daily seventh period and a bunch of tutors that could help me out, and I really need them, but I don't have access to them because I'm on the wait list. And every year I've been told, like since 8th grade, that I'll be put on a wait list, but it just never seems to move. And I wanted to ask you for your support to expand this program and allow students to be let in, like more students. Thank you.
Thank you. Casil or Cassio?
Yes, hi, my name is Cassia Bacarana. I'm currently attending San Jose State University, and I graduated last year, and I was in the Bridge program. I just want to share a little bit of my experience with Bridge. I honestly don't know where I would be without Bridge today. I'm a first-generation student, and high school was one of the hardest times for me. I struggled a lot with my personal life, my mental health, and I went through many hardships, which made it hard for me to succeed academically, but Bridge was always there for me. They helped me and kept pushing me, even when I no longer wanted to be pushed and I wanted to give up. They're a huge reason why I managed to graduate high school and go to college, a four-year college. They helped me when I felt most alone in my personal life and in school. For instance, when my father got diagnosed with cancer my senior year, they were there for me. And when I had no idea how to apply to college, they were also there. They provided me with a safe community, tutors, and academic opportunities to help me succeed and stay engaged. They understood me, where I came from, and what I've been through, and never judged or left me alone in my struggles. Bridge was the best thing I ever was a part of in high school, and I owe the Bridge program everything, so please keep funding Bridge. It's an amazing help for students.
Thank you. Emmanuel Diaz.
Hello, my name is Emmanuel Diaz. I've been on the wait list since freshman year. I'm a sophomore at Berkeley High. And I feel like I really do need the extra support from Bridge. So I'm like currently I'm in the process of maybe getting sent to BTech because I don't like have time to really do homework because when I get home I just procrastinate. And I feel like Bridge can really help me because it's a 7th period class that can what's it called? Just help me do schoolwork, which I like really do need because I feel like me personally, I just really need extra support from teachers and like tutors. So I'm just asking y'all to what's it called? Keep on funding Bridge and just open up the wait list.
Thank you. Daniel, 1 minute.
Okay, so I just checked over a invoice from one of the contracting companies. I'm glad we actually have a contractor on the agenda today. That invoice was for almost $500,000. They pay those contractors only $23.50 an hour, but charge 55. Just quick math means that we would save at least $150,000 by cutting that contract. We shouldn't just cut Elevo. We should cut Amerigus. We should cut Speech Pathology Group, Aya Healthcare, Epic Special Ed Staffing, and all of the other contracting agencies that we're just paying for the profits for instead of paying people. We need to stop putting these companies' profits ahead of the people who actually do the work.
Thank you, Daniel. Hannah?
Hello.
Hi, Hannah.
Hi. Okay, so I go to UC Berkeley. I'm a junior right now, and Bridge is very important. It's a family. If I wasn't in Bridge, actually, I was on the wait list and I got in sophomore year. And if it wasn't for Bridge, I would not have graduated high school, sadly. I was pushed every day to go to class. I was helped by the teachers to communicate. I was helped by the counselors to communicate with my teachers. It was just, it just helped me stay in school, and I come back, I tutor the kids, I go around to middle schools to ask them why they want to be in Bridge, and a lot of kids want to be a part of this program, and I'm just so grateful for everything this program has done for me till this day, and I hope that it can continue to help many more students reach their goals and making their own choices. That's
Thank
yes.
you so much. Thank you.
It's a family.
Jesse, are you there? Can you come off mic and talk to me? Because I can't answer your chat. I'm recording right now. Jesse? Hi, Jesse.
Oh, hi, I don't have a question.
Okay. I see that you're chatting me, and I'm like, I want to make
Oh, no, I'm
Okay.
not chatting you. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. So so that concludes public comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vivian, and thank you to everyone who came out to make public comments this afternoon. We're going to go ahead and move with our agenda. I apologize. I just want to make sure that everyone is clear that what we're going to do for this afternoon is follow up on some of the items that we were not able to address at our last meeting, and then we are going to update the committee on changes to the various phases 1 through 4, and then share with you all an initial phase 5 proposal. Before our public commenters and other members of the audience leave. Next slide, please, Ms. Vivian. I do want to make sure that everyone knows how to stay engaged and informed. One of our core values of resource allocation really centers this idea of those who are doing the work or most impacted by the work, the ones should be really engaged and included in the decisions, as well as the need for transparency. So next slide. So with that, I wanted to make sure that everyone that we do have a couple of resources for you all, virtual resources to learn more about the budget and to get more information about the budgeting both this year and in past years. One of those you see here, that's our business services webpage. That webpage is actually the most detailed of them all, in that it has years and years of adopted budgets and interim budgets for BUSD that actually tells you what we spend our dollars on, line item by line item, and how much is spent on those various line items. And those are both for internal employees and staff, as well as external partners, including contractors and other services. So if you want to really dig in and understand our budget, that's the place to go. Next slide. If you want just some more general information about our budget process, and the work of this committee, I encourage you to check out our new BUSD budget business webpage. Again, that one has a wealth of information, but it's kind of chunked out, if you will, and not as detailed and specific as the information that you would find on that business services webpage that I just referenced. Also, our SBAC, this committee, Superintendent's Budget Advisory Committee, has its own webpage. And on that webpage, you will find prior meeting recordings, as well as artifacts and presentation decks from prior meetings. That's an excellent way for you to catch yourself up, if you will. Or if there's a particular topic that this committee was talking about and you want to hear the discussion, I would encourage you to go to that page. In terms of staff, we've been trying to do our best to also keep them informed and engaged, both by including information and updates, both small and big chunks of information in our regular staff bulletin. Most recently, one went out, I believe, today. And then we've been creating these videos featuring me, unfortunately, where I provide some information, because we understand that folks get and consume information in different ways. So we're trying our best to be as creative as possible and multimodal in the ways that we're sharing information. And then, of course, a regular and more well-known way to get information is to attend our board meetings. And that those meetings are both in person and virtual. And I would say that if you're really there to get information, I encourage you not to just come for public comments. So those are a good time always to hear from our community and our constituents, but to actually stay for the agenda items themselves, because that's where you'll be able to hear staff share information, but more importantly, hear the board interact with staff, ask questions, give direction, and otherwise calibrate and collaborate around our goal to realize our mission statement. So just want to make sure before you go, you know that we are really invested in you being engaged and informed, and appreciate your participation as SBAC members, and for any folks who are here as members of the audience. Next slide, please. So with that, we're going to, again, pick up where we left off. We had a pretty robust agenda last week, and yet again, we have another robust agenda. So we're going to try to move quickly. I do want to remind folks of our protocols, hoping that folks who are not members of SBAC, not voting members, will stay on and listen to the conversation. I want to remind everyone that if you are a non-voting SBAC member, if you're a non-voting member or not a member of SBAC, we're going to ask that you do not use the chat for any reason. The chat is now reserved for SBAC members to ask questions, get responses, and otherwise engage. If you are an SBAC member, I want to remind you that the use of the chat is for agenda items at hand only, and for you to ask questions of staff. Similarly, if there is an opportunity to vote, which there is none scheduled for this afternoon, or to do a straw poll, we do ask that there are no folks interacting with that vote or trying to participate in the vote, except for those who are officially named as SBAC members. With that, we're going to jump into our aligning around key data points and details. Next slide, please. And what you're going to find when we do these data points and details, some of these are requests for information or requests for clarification from our SBAC members. Others of them are us updating you all and providing some more information. Sorry about that. For you all to get more information about things we've been thinking around these topics themselves. And so our first topic is furloughs. Just to bring everyone up to speed, furloughs was something that was proposed by staff early on in our various phases of budget balancing proposals. And SBAC, with that core value of equity, really pushed back and said, how about we consider not furloughs for everyone or general furloughs, but really target our furloughs for those folks who are in a certain salary bracket, if you will. And so staff looked at furloughs for a specific set of staff members, those who are making 125 and above. And so I'm going to allow Pauline to give you a reminder, refresher of that, and what those savings would be if we do that, how that'll help us move towards the target. Then I'm going to share a little bit of the implications, and then we're going to come back to you with another something that we've been thinking about that you actually will see in phase 5. Pauline?
Oh, thanks, Anika. So last week I went over this, and I'm just doing this as a refresher because I think we went pretty quickly last time. So we had looked at 5 to 10 days as a proposal, as a budget balancing solution, and we scored $350,000 for the unrestricted general fund. So the first box on the left shows what the implication is for the unrestricted general fund for all employees earning over $125,000 a year, and this impact actually includes their benefits as well. So one day was 42,000, 5 days was 211, 10 was 422. We scored somewhere in the middle, 350. But when we took a deeper dive, that included a lot of union members. So when the box to the right, we looked at what would the implications be if we remove the unions. And the unions that were included were UBA and Local 21. 10 days gave us 129,000, which is a lot less than the 350 we scored. When we added in Local 21, you can see that 10 days would give us $165,000. So obviously, UBA is contributing a lot to the 422 in the first box. And if we go to the next slide, the focus on this slide is just the unrestricted general fund. So we looked at UBA for 1 day, 5 days, and or 5 days for UBA and 10 days for everybody else. We got close to the 350. That was 301,000. But as I mentioned last week when I spoke to Samantha, we were only looking at positions that were 12 months. So even though UBA positions in our financial system, they're all listed on a 12-month calendar, not all UBA members work 12 months. Only 2 UBA members work 10 months. So if we're looking at 10 days for those 2 UBA members, as well as the other group that, yes, Steve, that's a good idea, but we're going to come to that. And then if you look at the other group, and we did 10 days, that's $188,000, and that's less than the 350. So we're looking at an adjustment of $161,000, almost $162,000. And this will actually be shared on a later slide, and the impact on our budget balancing solutions. I'll be discussing that later on in the presentation. So
Steve, in one moment, I'm going to let you say aloud what you put in the chat, because I'm not sure that I understand it, but I also, more importantly, want to make sure that our SBAC members understand it. But before doing so, just wanted to highlight, we have had a recent, actually 2 board meetings since we last met as an SBAC. And both in those meetings and in other spaces, there's been questions about the furloughs, but also questions about reduction of salary. And so one thing that we did share with the board, and that I want to share with you all here, is that they're to reduce anybody's salary, be it unrepresented employees or folks who are in labor, represented by labor units. That requires negotiation, right? Because everyone is under some level of contract in some way, shape, or form. And so it's not something that's easy or quick to be able to just say we're going to reduce salaries. That said, furloughs, in some ways, and I'm going to let Steve say his piece in a second, in some ways does something similar, right? Because folks are then taking a unpaid day off, and then therefore getting less than their typical salary. And so wanted to clarify that, because I think there were some points of confusion. They're not the exact same thing, but they end up having a pretty similar impact in terms of the employee's salary and overall pay. That said, some of the things to consider about furloughs is that it is a day off. So you're taking a day. Most of these folks, most of us are salaried, including our certificated staff, et cetera. We have some hourly employees, but a good number of folks are salaried. So we would take that day off and not work, in quotation marks, and not get paid. So this idea of not working, I want to make sure folks are clear about, because what we know and what we want you to know is during the summer months, there's a lot of work that actually happens at the central office, at the sites, to prepare for the school year. Professional developments happen during that time, either actually facilitating the PDs or actually planning PDs. There's a lot of hiring and onboarding that goes on during that time. There's tons of facilities work, because that's the only time that the majority of our campuses have a very small number of occupants. And then otherwise, there's lots of planning. So for example, this year, we're going to have to do a lot to plan for our high school PE implementation in response to the directives we just received from CDE. And so I wanted to be transparent, because we presented furloughs, 5 days, 10 days, as if the only impact would be the reduction or or the dollars saved for the budget, but in wanting to be transparent, there are some implications to the work, and we will continue to do the work. But the reality is, if we're taking days off, that does have an impact in the work that's done. And so I thought it was important for you all to understand that piece and for us to not to oversimplify the impacts that furloughs can have beyond the fiscal impact to the budget. I see a comment from Vicki, but I'm going to pause and let Steve very quickly explain what he was saying, and then maybe we can answer Vicki's question. Steve?
Yeah. So the 12-month over 125,000 is like for represented, it's almost exclusively local 21, and which we could have a much larger impact and spread the wealth and still utilize the same concept where instead of zero and for people with lower income, you could have a sliding scale. And this all has to be negotiated anyway, but you could have a sliding scale where you ask people under 80 to do 2 days and people between 80 and 150 to do, so you could still have the same concept and have a much larger. And I'll throw another concept out there. It would be hard to score, but I wonder if you put out there for voluntary, I imagine that some people would be happy to, take 2 or 3 days off during the year and for furloughs.
Yes. So. Thank you for clarifying that, Stephen. And that's something that I'm sure the team can look into. We haven't explored that option at length, though we've done a lot of exploration with the furloughs. And I actually appreciate that you actually made me remember to say something else. I talked about how changing salaries would require negotiation for lots of reasons, but similarly, I should have added that furloughs also require negotiation, particularly with those who are represented by our labor partners. It does not require any sort of negotiation for those of us who are unrepresented staff. So thank you for kind of jogging my memory to say that. I'm going to go to Vicki, and then I'm seeing Matt's hand is up.
I just wondered if it was going to be like everyone who's furloughing, your day is July 30th, or if people individually will be able to pick and choose what days they want to take off. So, for example, if someone had a vacation, they could do all 5 days of furlough and go on their vacation.
Yes. So thank you for that, because that is right. One of the next pieces of any of this type of thing is the implementation and what it looks like, right? And in part, Vicki, that's why I kind of spoke to the work that happens in the summer, because the team was having this conversation. And what other districts have done, some districts have done, is, for example, is furlough Fridays. Some have done what you said, where people can just pick their days. The tricky part about people picking their days is, again, that there's so much work that happens that requires multiple folks that it would actually probably slow the work down even more than furloughs in general do. Doesn't mean that's guaranteed. And so we're still kind of playing with what is the best way, if we are going to proceed with doing furloughs, what is the best way to do it that still allows us to take into account what that slide says, that there's so much critical work that has to happen. And so we don't want people taking different days and throw us off. But we're still exploring that and are open to ideas. But again, I think that also depends on if we're going to do the 1 day or the 5 day or the 10 days. As you get higher in the number of days, really being intentional about who takes what day when becomes a different consideration than if it's just everybody's going to take a day, then you can take your day whenever you want, right? So we're still trying to figure that part out, Vicki. Matt?
I think I say this every time, but I just want to remind everyone in the room that this is not an ongoing savings. This is a one-time savings, right? So it doesn't actually solve the ongoing structural deficit. It just gets you out of a 1-year bind. And I just think it's just important when you think about the costs and benefits of doing it. It's just I think that needs to be considered.
No, thank you for saying that, Matt, because something else I forgot to say. It takes a village, people. I'm glad we're all here as a team. But that is definitely an important consideration. It doesn't mean it's something that the team wants to ignore, but it does mean something we should think about, because again, we're doing multi-year planning, and the target that we have is a multi-year target. It's not just for next year. And so if you recall, last year when we did our budget balancing, there were some things that we had to carry over into this year's budget balancing because they were only one-time fixes. So what Matt says is true, and it's something that the committee definitely take into consideration. And I think that should always kind of be like one of the things that we talk about for our core values is sustainability and stability. Applied differently to budget, we should always be thinking about, are these kind of fixes, or are these balancing strategies actually going to help us towards our target across the multiple years, or is it that one-time fix? But I appreciate you for calling that out, Matt. Next slide, please. And so just now, this is a preview of some, now us thinking some more. We again talked about the 10 days even, and the return that would give us, or the ways that which that would advance us towards our target, and the number was not significant. And so we did revisit, and this will come up in phase 4, but just because we're talking about furloughs, want to be really transparent. We did revisit and think about back to this idea of the 1-day furlough district-wide. Again, when we first brought the idea, we were playing with the idea district-wide. SBAC challenged us to go and think about it for those in the higher income bracket, for lack of a better way to describe it. And so what we're playing with now, what you'll see in proposal in phase 5, is still, the 1-5, more likely 10 days for the unrepresented folks, and go ahead and recoup those benefits or those savings one time, and then a district-wide 1 day. So I'm going to let Pauline quickly speak to that one. If folks have any other ideas or considerations for furloughs, we'll take them now. But again, we're not asking you to straw poll or do anything with this. It's just us bringing back information that folks have questions about. Pauline?
Thanks, Anika. So one of the things that we tend to look at is the cost of 1 day district-wide, and this is for all employees. What's the impact on the unrestricted general fund and other funds, restricted and unrestricted? So again, reminding everybody that our focus is on the unrestricted general fund. So with salary and benefits, 1 day of a furlough would give us $479,000 worth of savings. But remember, we're also looking at the group over 125,000. So 1 day is about 20,000 for that group, and that's the revised number, not the original 350 that I shared with you. So so we're looking at a net impact of about $459,000 if we did 1 day's furlough across the entire district for all employees. And we'll be looking at this a little bit in phase 5 as well. Vicky, you had a question?
Yeah, I'm not sure the intricacies in HR and how we pay people, but could this 1 day be like, for example, a day over a holiday break, so that instead of paying somebody for that holiday pay, they're taking that off unpaid? And does that save us money? So like the first day of winter break is a furlough day. Can that work?
Well, I think when we looked at this and when we looked at furloughs, we looked at PD days, because we don't want to impact days of instruction. So we were looking at PD days, and the 125 that we had looked at wouldn't actually, Sam is going to answer a little bit more detail, but the 125, that the 10 days wouldn't impact instruction, but I'll defer to Sam to provide additional information.
So we have a lot of different work year schedules. And so like all of our BFT members, none of them work during the breaks. So Thanksgiving week, the 2 weeks in winter, and this week in spring, none of our BFT members work. And so there wouldn't be a way to furlough them there. That's the difficulty we have. BCCE is split. We have some people who are working and some people who are not. Local 21, almost everybody works, I think. I'm trying to remember if there's anybody who doesn't, maybe OTs that don't, but and then our administrators have a staggered start and end to cover tasks at the end, and they generally don't work during those breaks as well. So it's a complicated issue for us to look at, and the other piece that I would say is that we also, as Pauline just stated, we want to make sure that we are not touching those 180 instructional days. There's that piece. The other piece is that holidays, certificated staff do not get paid for holidays at all. Only classified staff.
And so again, wanted to just bring this back because people had questions to give you the updates, but also just kind of foreshadow that as we are close, but not close enough to our budget balancing target. And you'll hear more about that a little bit later on in our agenda. We're just trying to figure out what other ways can we move and reduce some of our costs. We will take into consideration your idea, Steve, which is to think about maybe tiering this out in different ways to look at different salary groups, if you will, and then figuring out a number of days for those groups. But again, want to be clear that any of this in terms of furlough days, both have implementation considerations that we would then have to work out. Also, perhaps might have implications to the work, particularly for the unrepresented staff members who would be taking the higher number of days, but also would need to be negotiated with our labor partners as well. Rebecca, last question on this item, and then we're going to move on. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to Matt's point and understand it a little better. So I understand this is a one-time fix, and next year we would have to sort of revisit the furlough or come up with a different place to take the money from. Mm-hmm. That's correct? And so then I assume in order for us to do this, we'd have to go back to the contracts that we have with the FT and others to negotiate the furlough day. Is that right?
We have to negotiate the days, yes.
And then I guess the other question I would have is if we need to cover this in the long haul versus during a furlough day, do we think about, doing a permanent solution so you're not going back to it over and over again? So to Vicky's point about, well, what if we didn't take the Wednesday off of whatever holiday week, or I don't know, but I guess I'm trying to understand this furlough, which means people don't get paid, versus the reduction in something else somewhere else rather than a PD day, because I know those PD days are pretty precious. So I'm curious about understanding that, and maybe it's too hard for this, but that's where my head is, because I think the idea of a PD day really impacts a lot of folks, especially as we're talking about literacy, implementation, and all those things. So help me understand why this versus something different if you're going to have to negotiate it in.
And not furlough, or why? So
a permanent day, like if we know that this savings is what we need for the general fund, the furlough thing is a sort of one-time fix for 1 year.
Yeah.
And the question I'm asking is, do we need to be thinking bigger than that and think about a fix that's a reduction in a day for, years? Because that's what we did in the general fund.
We need to be thinking bigger than a lot of this, but we're also in a time crunch. And okay. I can't anticipate, and I can't think of an example of making a furlough day permanent. That doesn't mean reducing folks' salary. So that's what I'm trying to understand the question, because yeah, it is one time to do a furlough. I mean, you could talk about it every year, but that would be silly, right? And so for making it more permanent fix, it really would be reducing or changing people's work calendar, right? Which then impacts their salary, or reducing folks' salary. So there's not a way that I can understand it, and some of my union folks can chime in if I'm not answering this correctly or based on how I'm understanding it. But it would be just a one-time fix, and I don't know that I would want to engage in furloughs every year, nor do I want to reduce anyone's calendar or their salary, to be quite transparent. Matt?
Yeah, some of this is reserved for negotiations, just in terms of how this would go down. I have never seen a situation ever where salaries have been negotiated on the whole down.
Right.
It's pretty much doesn't happen. It would never have an agreement. I know my membership would never sign off on an agreement that did that, because remember, anything, I can sign whatever I want. My members still vote on the MOU. So it's especially when the district has put forth, ways of balancing the budget that, and that don't require salary reductions. Right. And so, I think that we can spend a lot of time talking about these furloughs if we want. But in the end, I think that unless we're only talking about the unrepresented staff, no one is going to get to decide but the members themselves to take this.
Right.
Steve?
Yeah, kind of doubling down on what Matt just said. Yeah, asking people to take a salary decrease negatively impacts their retirement and all that kind of stuff. So that's a much bigger step to take. And you know, I'm not saying that my members will vote to even take furloughs, right? But if we're going to have this conversation, you know, we are coming up with one-time solutions for a lot of our, you know, corrections. Ideally, we get longer-term solutions, but the goal is to someday, you know, to get through this downturn until things turn back up, right? And the turn back up will happen someday. So that's why furloughs, if you're looking for this, furloughs is the only conversation you can even start with unions, right? Because nobody's going to approve a salary decrease, right?
Exactly. And I want to say again, both to Matt and Steve and everybody listening, that was not my proposal. I will not recommend a salary decrease, but I was trying to answer Rebecca's question of what kind of ongoing furloughs mean to me. And you're right, Steve, if we're going to enter this conversation at all, it would be about furloughs. And again, this is not saying this is what we want to do, but we again, crunch those numbers. I got you, Ms. Natasha. When we crunch those numbers for just the unrepresented, it didn't make the dent that I know we need to make. And so we wanted to revisit this again at a much smaller scale for those folks who are not within that 125 or above. Natasha's the final word on this one, because we got to move on to contractors and other information.
I'll make it super quick. Thank you very much, Superintendent. Just to say to the point about one-time versus ongoing, absolutely agree. Salary cut is very hard to imagine, certainly not something you're going to negotiate. What you can do going forward, and I am not proposing this, is that salary increases are not as much as you might want them to be, which then of course runs into the whole reason that we, you know, did a special measure, the BERA measure, to try and make our salaries more competitive. So we're in a catch-22 there, but I just wanted to second the idea that ongoing cuts are not exactly what you would be thinking about. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Berry. Ms. Natasha, good to see you. Okay, friends, we're going to move on. Again, no proposal here, just coming back with information that folks asked, but we will come back and think about Steve's kind of tiered out way of doing it. Thank you for that, Steve. The other topic that's come up a lot, even heard it come up in a couple of public comments, is what BUSD is spending on contractors. We have contractors at BUSD like all other districts for a number of reasons. Some of the services that contractors provide are services that can only be provided by contractors. But there are examples of services, and I think that's what you're hearing in some of the comments, that actually can be done with staff. And so one of those contracts that have come up a lot is the Alivo contract. Can you go to the next slide, Ms. Vivian? And so we wanted to come and have members of the Ed Services team speak to this contract, explain it. It is a significant cost, but also share our strategies to address the concerns and to lower the costs over time. So I'm not sure if it's Jill or Jessica, but I was going to say cede my time. I'm going to give the floor to either of you.
Great. Thanks, Anikia. So as mentioned, there has been some questions around the contractors in general, but specifically the Alivo contract that we have. We are using the Alivo company to provide support for our students in our after-school program to work alongside our ITs and our IAs. We currently have 21 Alivo contractors in BUSD for our after-school program. And we need this contract. We have needed this contract because we've been unable to fill vacancies with our own staff of IAs and ITs. And so that was the genesis of why we have that. So we know that we want to prioritize employing our own people, and that is where this next turn is. So how is BUSD looking for other ways to address the need? We've mentioned before in this meeting, a career fair for recruitment, a really strategic career fair for specific positions. Work with the Personnel Commission so we can get multiple names on a list so we can do recruitment in a much more efficient and effective manner. And also we have a lot of families who I think might want to do some of these roles. So getting the word out, how to apply, what does it mean to be in IT? So there's a couple different strategic moves that we're making as a district to try to get our own ITs and IAs. what we've done so far with the contract, it started as a $1.5 million contract. We've lowered that within the last year to $1 million. We've been funding it out of COVID relief funds, which, as we know, have now expired. And we're also funding it out of ELOP. In working with the contract, we are reducing the number of Alivo contractors, working with Alivo staffing, the staffing model. So we've been working with them specifically on, hey, where are you willing to make moves so that we can decrease this contract, knowing that ultimately we would like to remove ourselves from this contract. But in the meantime, how are we decreasing it, and where are you willing to meet us in the middle? So reducing the number of contractors, reducing the staffing model that they currently use, and reducing the time that we have to onboard our own people and release their people. And so it was 30 days and now it's at 14. So a couple of tweaks within their own contract. We're looking for other ways to address the need as well. I mentioned a few recruitment efforts, and also looking for opportunities to increase hours of our existing employees who may, sometimes with the logic model, it lines up perfectly where someone works a certain number of hours and then can take on another couple of hours, making their own FTE more. So other things to think about, but just wanted to give a high level overview.
Thank you, Dr. Banduras. So Frank, I see your hand. I'm going to start with you, and then I see Rebecca has something in chat. Friends, I'm going to say we're not going to spend super long on contractors because there's other items, but we definitely, and this is not necessarily represented in our general fund balancing target, but this was just a common theme. So we wanted to start here. Frank, and then we'll look at Vicky and Rebecca's question in the chat.
Monica, this is my favorite subject.
I know. That's why I did that whole but yeah.
Right.
Go ahead, Frank.
A couple of questions. You say there's 21 currently contractors or agencies, workers out there. Do we have a number like throughout the year that we could compare to? And then if we got rid of the contractors or Alivo altogether, what savings would that be for the district? So we could, look at those numbers. If we just got rid of them and we were able to put in all permanent employees. Mm-hmm. So I'll keep it short, Anika. That's the only two questions I have.
Yeah. So to your first question, we can look at this current year and see how many people we've released contract with under the Alivo contract is one way of saying that. So in order to go from the 1.5 million to 1 million, that represents less contractors and more of our own employees. So we can get those numbers. The cost is this: if you hire everybody, you'll pay that salary, and then you decrease the contract. And so eventually it'll even out, but it wouldn't be, for example, we'd save $1 million because we would be hiring people. And so we'd have to look at those numbers and see how they compare.
Let me see. Rebecca had a comment in the chat. I don't know. It was a comment, I think. So Vicky, go ahead and ask your question and I'll look at Rebecca's comment.
Yeah. I have a few questions. The first one is, when you say after school contracts, is that LEARN staff that you're talking about?
We have IATs, which are LEARNs, and IAs, which are in BEARS.
Okay. And then my main question, and this is, I'll just preface this with saying, is my understanding, this is not factual, but for example, at Malcolm X, we have IAs that have been there for several years that are contractors with speech pathology group. And I know that several of them would love to convert to full-time employees instead of contractors. And it is my understanding that we are now allowed to hire people who at one point were contractors, like the state law has changed. And so my question is, who would do that hiring? Would it be the principal? Are there open positions that they could hire into? And can they hire those contractors to convert them from contractors to salaried staff, because they've been contractors at our school for such a long time and would prefer to have benefits and better pay, because we pay more than what they're making as a contractor, even though we're paying more for them to the agency.
So I'll take that one. So the positions you're talking about are actually IAs for special ed assignments,
Yeah,
as opposed to after school.
for example. Yeah.
Yeah. So the law that changed that you mentioned, just to clarify, is that no longer in California is a non-compete clause legal. So they can't write into a contract that somebody can't go work for the competition within a certain period of time or anything like that. That's now illegal in California. All of our contracts currently that we signed earlier this year, though, this school year, do have that language in there and has a fine that the district was worried about. That has now, we're not as worried about it because of the change in the law, even though it's written into the contract, and contracts are a funny piece of law. But um, we have been hiring some contractors. They have to go through the merit commission though. So even though they've been working for us technically as a contractor, they still have to go through all the minimum qualifications. They have to test, they have to end up on an eligibility list, and then we can offer them a job. And so we are going through all of that. And the one piece that we are not doing until after June 30th is we are not going to actively pursue these people because we don't want to be seen as poaching. But if they come to us, we can hire them. So if they apply and go through the process, we're hiring them. But we can't reach out to them and say, please apply. We want to hire you. Because that sort of gets us into a gray area. Does that make sense?
Yep. Thank you so much.
Sam, can I keep you on just to respond quickly to a question in the chat? And we only can answer from your perspective, but what is the benefit to the employee to work with the contractor at a school rather than being hired directly?
The contractors don't have the same requirements that we have in terms of the process and how long it takes to get hired. So that's a main benefit. It used to be that contractors also didn't have to meet some of the same like minimum qualifications, but they have been recently because the state of California has been cracking down on what agencies do. But the only other thing is not having to pay benefits like from like our benefits. They can choose to go through Covered California or an outside source without much difficulty compared to being within a union shop working for us.
We're gonna get ready to close this item. There is a comment in the chat from Rebecca about just the curiosity around if we pay the $55 to contractors, would it save us money if we pay our people better? Is that the barrier? And I would say that there are multiple barriers around this, Rebecca and committee members. Salary for sure, or pay. I'm going to be honest, it's definitely one of them. Some of the other ones that exist, you just heard Sam talk about just the timeline and the time it takes to go through the process with the Personnel Commission and the merit system and the onboarding, et cetera. You can get a job faster in some cases with the contractor directly. Also, just the schedule itself is challenging for some folks. A certain type of person with a certain schedule is willing or wanting to work part-time shifts or shifts later in the afternoon. So I just want to not oversimplify it and say that it's just the dollar amount or the hourly pay. There's a lot of different things that are impacting the challenge. And then just quite transparently, us doing better at more actively recruiting folks to do the work. And you just heard some of our efforts to do so very intentionally, as well as then thinking about once they are here, like how do we retain them? Because again, there's a lot of competition, and not just I want to be an IA or IT, but sometimes you can get a higher paying job or get a job faster in some other non-education industry and companies. And so we're competing with that as well. I do want to close out with Renee. I was going to close out with Beatrice just because I do have Jessica and Sam on the call, and maybe Jill as well. And if you all are not ready to answer this question, that's fine. But what Beatrice is saying, and I'll try to read it if you don't see it in the chat, if the Child Development Program CSPP preschool is not fully earning its contract because children are enrolling in TK, funds can be transferred over to CCTR or BEARS to relieve some of the ELEVO contract. That was said as a statement, perhaps said as a fact. I don't know if Jessica or Sam or Jill are ready or able to respond to that idea. But if not, Ms. Beatrice will come back and respond later. But I'm going to ask the team if they're ready or you need some time.
Yeah, I haven't heard that, but it's interesting, and I will definitely look into it. Thank you, Beatrice.
Yes, my understanding is you can. I don't know. You would have to talk to your analysts about this, but you can transfer funds over from one contract to another. And it's like only to the bears because that's a CCTR program. You can't do it to the Learns program, but that might pinch off some money from the contractor level that you're using, possibly.
Thank you for that, Ms. Beatrice. Jessica might want to cut and paste that one because sometimes the chat disappears. There was also a Renee. Renee is really the last one, you all, on this topic. Have we reached out to BUSD employees that do not work full time to see if they'd be willing? I would say, Renee, that there have been a number of strategies. But again, I think we've acknowledged that we need to do better with the outreach, the advertisement, and the recruitment piece of this work. And so reaching out to BUSD employees who don't work full time can definitely be a part of that strategy. Sam, I don't know if you wanted to say more to that.
So we have in the past, and within the last 5 years, we have done that. The part of the issue is that we need people in the after school program all the way until almost 6 o'clock at night. And so if they work a 0.8 during the day, they don't have enough time to get forward to the end of the day. And so we have a surplus of staff at a certain time period, 3 to 4 o'clock, but no staff from 4 to 6. And so that's the piece that we're working on, is figuring out, is there a different way to stagger it? Are there different ways to do it? And we're looking into all of that. We also, we've had some people express interest, and then once they looked at things, they decided they weren't interested. And so it's, and it is quite a bit of work to do, but we are working on that. I'm also, I've instructed my staff to contact everybody who is currently on the eligibility list for the after school instructional technicians and to offer them positions for August at this point. And if they say yes, then we are starting to onboard them right now. So our goal is to not need to have Levo for a contract for the fall.
And again, we use Alivo as an example. We know that we have some other contractors with whom we're doing a similar process, but wanted this group to know, because again, it's come up a lot, that it is not our preference, except for those situations where we only can provide services or get something done with a contractor, in which the case this is not the case. We are really actively trying to reduce contracts. So we're not satisfied, nor are we wanting to overpay anyone or get. Instead of having our own employees, we want to have our own employees. So I wanted to just give you that update with this one as an example of the work that we've been trying to do to reduce contracts in real time, but also to ultimately not have to even use these contractors. And also just want to appreciate Dr. Banduras, who's new in the role, but in the short time, it's been just a couple months that she's been here, has been really actively engaging with this particular contract, for example. And again, that change of the contract terms that required initially a 30-day notice before we could reduce, she's been actively working to get it to 14. And so we are all on the same page, the committee and the staff. And so just wanted to highlight that. With that, I'm going to move us along because I want to make sure Pauline has time to kind of redo our target, but also want to make sure you get the information you've been asking for. Another one has been about LEAP. There's been a lot of questions. Next slide, please, about LEAP. And again, LEAP is one of those ones, again, that's come up in this group in particular, but does not directly impact our general funds. And so it doesn't have necessarily a direct impact on the target. But again, within the spirit of transparency, we want to provide you a response and update to that. Jill?
Hi, everybody. Good to see you. Just wanted, the LEAP classes came up as a suggestion from this group as an area for possible reduction. We do realize that our LEAP classes, which take place in our 9th grade classes that provide additional support for students who are not students with IEPs, we've heard from some members of this committee who have had students in the LEAP class that have found it to be a positive experience. And we've had a variation of response on the effectiveness of the program. But one of the things that we have been looking at specifically has been the enrollment. Each hive currently has 3 LEAP classes with a maximum of 12 students, but the average enrollment has been low. I was trying to get a most recent update, but at some point about 2 months ago, it was somewhere around 6 or 8 students, and the lowest enrolled class is a student of 1. And so I know that our labor partners have been working with our U9 teachers to identify an opportunity to realize some efficiencies and savings in still maintaining some level of support, but recognizing that we would want to maximize the capacity of those classes. So what we are looking at is to reduce each hive from 3 LEAP classes to 2. So that would be taking it from 21 sections to 14, which is the equivalent of a 1.4 FTE. While that is not a savings in the general fund, it is a savings for LCAP. Our LCAP supplemental, as some of you are aware, maybe I know our PAC members are more aware than others, we had a funding gap in the LCAP coming into this year, which we've mostly covered with carryover funds, but that gap is still there and has grown this year, and we're looking to resolve a $1.1 million shortfall in the LCAP supplemental funds. So we'll be moving the hive sections out of the LCAP, and because there's capacity then in BSEP to cover that. And then we're going to be doing a swap to reduce some other expenses in the LCAP supplemental using the savings realized in BSEP.
Just gonna see
I
if
have
there's
a question.
There you go, Ms. Beatriz, go ahead.
The students who are in LEAP are not in Puente, not in Bridge, not in any other program.
Yes. So what's important to note that may or may not be true. So Puente, so with our U9 structure, Puente does not start until grade 10. So you would not have any students who are in Puente and in LEAP. You might have students who were in LEAP in 9th grade who then are in a Puente class in 10th grade, but those two things wouldn't happen at the same time. It could be that there are 9th graders in LEAP who are also in Bridge or Rise, because Bridge and Rise take place after school.
Okay.
I don't see any other hands, and I don't see anything in the chat about LEAP. And so we're going to go ahead and advance to the next one, which is still you, Miss Jill. This one definitely is something that has been a part of our budget balancing proposals that we brought to SBAC. I can't remember which phase, apologies, and there were some questions. And so we're going to, again, no decision or action for you all this evening, but wanted to provide the update on OFI staffing.
So here's where we are right now, but wanted to provide you a couple of tidbits of information on our OFI staffing. One thing I do want to call your attention to in the top right-hand corner of the slide is a link, and I'm hoping I checked my permissions now that I linked it, but our OFI team, as part of PAC's review of our we have 5 LCAP goals, but the 5th one is specific to BTA. We presented to the LCAP our actions toward LCAP goal number 4, which is on engagement, and the slides that our OFI team put together and presented to PAC are linked for you there. What we do know, for those of you who might not know, our OFI team provides and continues to provide important support for students and families at each individual site and at the district. We have a total of 13 OFI staff members, one of whom lives in our VAPA department and does slightly different work from the rest of the team. You know that our OFI team members have been on the layoff list, and to date, 8 FTE have been rescinded. You can see the distribution of those OFI team members on the left-hand side of the screen, and then across the bottom is the amount of FTE and the funding source. So what was on for consideration for this group was the unrestricted general funded positions that you see there is about 3.5. We do have the bulk of our OFI team members are on the LCAP supplemental. So again, we have a funding gap in the LCAP supplemental funds. Some of you might remember that we went to the board last year to ask for permission to use the LCAP reserve. We had covered some of those positions with LCAP carryover. And again, we had we had capacity in LCAP carryover because we had some COVID funds that we needed to spend out, but that COVID funds all expired in September of 2024. And so we have definitely spent down that carryover. There have been a number of actions that we've carried on LCAP carryover, inclusive of some of our bridge programming. One of our positions is funded through the MHSSA grant with the city. And then we do have part of one of our OFE team members that's funded on site BSEP at the high school. So one of the questions that has come up is like, well, what happens if we reduce capacity? You know, reducing capacity for any of these positions is obviously not ideal. We recognize that all of our staff members, inclusive of our OFE team members, play an important role for our students and families. So what that would mean was we would have to focus our efforts on some priority actions. So the board has asked us to make sure that we prioritize components of the Latinx resolution and the African American Success Framework. That's inclusive of ensuring that our families who are Spanish speaking have access to services that are in their language. And we have a number of our OFE team members who are Spanish speakers, and it's definitely an asset to have them as they help our families navigate the BUSD system. And we would also want to make sure that those efforts are in alignment with LCAP goals and measures. But anytime, I think that what is the slide, oh, Gustavo is here, I got musical background. Anytime you're making a reduction, we do have to have a recognition that there might be things that we're going to need to scale down or stop doing. And so it will be important for us to be engaging the board and the community on the breadth of work that's happening and where we should be focusing our efforts if we come to a place where we have reduced capacity on this team.
I saw Frank and then Nicole.
Yeah, I just have a clarifying question. The care navigator, is that a OFE position, and is that under BCCE? I would wanted to say.
Yes, Sam can confirm that, but it is an OFE position, but it's the grant funding position calls it a care navigator, and the intention there is to provide capacity within the district to connect our families to city agencies and supports. And we're definitely learning a lot from that process in our partnership with the city.
Nicole?
Nicole, I don't know if you're talking, but I can't hear you.
Okay.
Sorry. Gosh, darn it. My bad. Okay. Start again.
Great. Awesome question.
Okay. Oh, yeah, exactly. Easy, slam dunk. So on the right, one is just clarifying. On the right, it says 8 FTEs rescinded, but on the left, it says, I think there's like 6.5 positions there. Am I 7.5 or something? I just didn't know if there's more.
Yeah, so there's technically 13. What you see listed on the left is 12. It's 0.5 FTE per elementary site.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah. Sorry, that wasn't clear. I guess.
No, totally.
Yeah, I should.
My bad. I was reading it too fast. My real question is, OFE's been it's come up every year that I've been on SBAC, and I think every year I've been on P&O, to be honest, which is a while, not as long as Aaron Glimmy, but and one of the big questions that comes up that I think is relevant to hear, I'd love to understand, is what is the current reporting structure of OFE? In the past, we've had like a supervisor and then another role, and then the person they reported to, there was a couple layers in there. I was curious what the current reporting structure is.
Right. So you will recall we had an Office of Equity, Achievement, and Belonging. That was a director position that we put on freeze, and it's on for SBAC consideration to score to close that position. When we closed that director position coming into the school year, the work of that department, inclusive of the unit that is known as OFE, moved into the student services department. So there's a director there who oversees the whole work of the student services department. And a component of that is our OFI team. That is not unlike most other district structures who have some form of family liaison support. You might find that in a student services department. For the OFI unit, we have a supervisor. You see that listed there under the district row on the table there on the left. So our OFI team members are identified as district staff, and they report to Miss Lydia, who is their supervisor.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands or questions on this item, which is perfect because it's time for us to move to the other item that's of importance to this group, which is really looking at our budget balancing target. The slides that remain are just to say that we know that there is more information that the committee has requested at the last meeting regarding our college readiness programs. We had an opportunity to hear from students who are in all of these programs, and I've actually echoed what I said last week, is that these programs are of value. All of these programs are of value to our babies, which makes any conversations about balancing a hard conversation. Our goal was to and is to really think about balancing with regard to these programs by addressing kind of inefficiencies, if you will, and truing up costs. So that is making sure that the amount paid or encumbered is actually consistent with the data around how many students participate and are served, and or in the case of Bridge, the proposal was to think about that fifth cohort, which is now graduating, and to reduce the personnel that was needed for that fifth to more accurately reflect the personnel that's needed for the current one per grade level. But there are still many conversations that we have and need to have, and then some data that we're coming back to you with. So I wanted to provide you that update that we did not forget, but we're just thinking about making sure when we come back, we have something new and different to share. Next slide. Similarly, do 2 slides, Ms. Vivian. Similarly, the same is true for the focal populations. Specifically for this conversation, the partnerships that are impacted or that impact the general fund would be the Young Gifted and Black Partnership and the R.T. Fisher Partnership, all part of the African American Success Framework. And so I've been in conversation with those partners. I'm really transparent about where we are fiscally, but also transparent about our commitment to continue to do this work and serve these populations. And I should have said that also for our college readiness groups as well. And so, we're having ideas and we're sharing with you ideas, but we're really trying to do this collaboratively with the folks who are in charge of and facilitating these programs, both, again, R.T. Fisher and YGB, as well as those college readiness programs, Bridge, Rise, and College Bound. And so because those conversations are still happening, we will come back to you with an update at our next meeting. Nicole, you have a question, and then we're going to move on to the target.
Yeah. Quick comment. I just wanted to follow up on my comment about this last time, is that I went back through the records, and R.T. Fisher was a 3-year contract, and this year is the 3rd year of that contract. So the original intention was not to extend, but thank you.
The original intention, yes, was to be a 3-year contract. I don't know if that's the same as saying not to extend, Nicole, but you are right. It was supposed to be a 3-year project. And similarly, there are folks who made that, who said that was the same for the framework. And I want to distinguish that might not be the case for the framework. One thing, since you said it, that I did want to call out, just to echo a little bit of, in some ways, what you said, is on this slide. It actually outlines some of the kind of thinking behind the partnership with R.T. Fisher in particular. And it was kind of what we say in school, I do, you do, we do, and thinking about really phasing out the partnership as the capacity is built internally. And so this one shows 5 years. I know you are right. Originally it was a 3-year contract, but I don't want us to get into the numbers, but I want to say that has been and is the plan, Nicole, is to really think about how do we gradually how do we gradually release what we call it, the responsibility to BUSD, to internals in BUSD, to the district offices, et cetera, to do the work that we've now been doing in partnership with R.T. Fisher. And that's been the conversation as we've been having these kind of negotiations, if you will, about thinking about the work and where there might be able to be reductions. And that's specific to the R.T. Fisher partnership conversations, just to be clear. Rebecca, last one on this one. I keep saying that.
Yeah, so I also sit on the SSC, and one of the things that we funded this year was the ongoing wonderful African American dance programming, right? So there was I think $54,000 that we put toward that. And as I look at Young Gifted and Black, right, and the cost per student involved, and I think about what we just funded through BSEP dollars through the SSC at Berkeley High, you know, it feels like that might be a really sweet spot for deeper conversations around integration, right? And utilizing what we've just paid for with our own funds for our own teachers, and bring in what the elements of Young Gifted and Black are to that program, or think a little bit about that opportunity, since we just funded that. I just wanted to mention that.
For sure. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
And the other thing is, I think it's really, you know, because the City of Berkeley funds both Rise and Bridge, I think it's really important for us, and has chosen not to fund other programming. I think it's just really important for us to understand like the other data pieces, right, that are there. And so maybe you've looked at those and you're waiting to bring those back to us, this bigger picture. But I do think there's a bigger picture just based on what's happening in the city, and I didn't want to lose sight of that.
I appreciate you for saying that. Want to go back to YGB. YGB is specifically for the littles, for the little bubbas, and the African diaspora class that you're talking about is more high school. That said, it's not lost on me. I think the thinking around finding ways that we could integrate and incorporate. YGB was housed, I want to say for the last 2 years, off-site, a non-BUSD site, and now it's housed at BAM, which is originally, when it became a partner with the district, it was at a district site, and that's been showing that's a part of why we believe there's been some increase in participation. But I think there's a lot more intentional ways that we can think about integrating the program into BUSD, and not just as an after-school program, and not just by placing it at a site. But again, there are conversations that are happening around what we can do and what we can sustain, and then what they can sustain and how much they can make. We had them reduce their contract last year as well. We also reduced R.T. Fisher last year. We also reduced College Bound last year. And so at some point, for some of these partners, it's going to be what can they actually do for the reduced price. So again, hoping to come back to you all with some more information around that. I will say, before I give it to Pauline, and I've said this in some spaces, but perhaps not in this one. My challenge has been, Rebecca and others, just to be really transparent, is, again, I can tell you, I can testify about each of these programs, right, and why they are amazing, and ways they are similar, and ways they are unique and different. And every single one of them is a value add for some group of students or for some families. Every single one is the value add for students who are historically underrepresented and not the best served in BUSD. And so when I come to you all and I talk about all three, it's really because I struggle with the idea of reducing the options that are available to kids of color, or to kids who come from families who may not have the same means as other families. We have a number of programs that so many of our students participate in, and what we know and what we've heard from all the public comments, listening to Ms. Betty, Dr. Willis, and Ms. Jessie, is that these programs have a unique niche, and they serve babies who are not oftentimes in those other programs. So the reason why I keep bringing you all three, and the reason why, transparently, I hesitate to think about, well, let's get rid of one, or let's get rid of two and just put all our resources into one, is because I don't know, I just struggle with that as an equity dilemma, probably just for me and the skin that I'm in and what I've been through in my life. And I don't like the idea that we feel the need to make it like you only get one choice if you're from this group, or only get two choices when we have babies who have tons of choices. So don't respond, please. It's probably a philosophical over coffee or something else conversation, but just wanted to be really transparent of why you keep hearing me go back to all three and not trying to narrow it to one or two. So that's just my little soapbox. We can come back to that, but I didn't want to miss the opportunity, because I don't think I've ever been transparent about that. I'm an advocate for all three. And I want our babies to have options, and I want them to have 3 quality options, if not more quality options. And I recognize that we are in really tight fiscal times and have to make some hard decisions. So they're both and right now for me. Okay, friends, stop. No more questions. Ready? Because Pauline got some updates to give us that are really, really important as we think about getting ready to advance things to be considered for the final budget submission. So with that, we're going to start thinking about our movement towards our target.
Okay, thanks, Sadikia. You can go to the next slide, please, Vivian. We're going to jump over this because we know we're in stormy weather. We know this one. All right. So we shared this very quickly at the last meeting. We had rescinded some positions that impacted the amount that we're scoring in some of our phases. So that was the May 7th adjustments. There were positions in phase 1. So after that update, as a reminder, our target was $1.3 million because we reduced phase 1 by the $202,000. $350, and that were the 2 positions that we rescinded. Next slide. And this is just a revised summary of our phases and our approaches, our strategies. The next slide as well, Vivian. So this is also showing in the format, just in terms of strategies, phases. This is the 1.3 that you saw on the previous slide, but this is just a summary. And then if you look at the next slide, this is our graphics that we share with you on a regular basis. So all of these numbers now tied to the revised target that we shared with you at the last meeting. After we rescinded 2 positions on our own, not board us rescinded, we rescinded before it went to the board. All right, next slide, please, Vivian. And as a reminder, in phase 1 on the next slide, this shows you the positions that we had rescinded. Again, that's just a refresher. But what I want to call your attention to is these 3 positions that we had pulled from phase 1. We still have to revisit the HR tech position. 2 of the other positions were rescinded. So we don't need to talk about the scorekeeper, and the board also rescinded the PD coordinator. So the one that impacts the general fund is the storekeeper, and you could see that staff pulled that before it went to the board for the final resolution last night. So what we'll be bringing back to you will be the HR tech, because that was pulled, and we need to get your feedback. That's going to be counted $45,000 for that position. So when we do the straw poll, we'll be including that one position. And if you have any questions, we can answer it at that time. Next slide. So Anika had talked to you about I had talked to you about the furloughs, and we also talked about college readiness and the targeted groups. We took a closer look, and in terms of our furlough, as I shared with you on that deck, for the unrestricted general fund, we're actually reducing this proposal by $161,000, $360. This was a one-time proposal, so you'll see that our one-time solutions are going to be reduced by that amount. When we looked at college readiness, we had estimated $400,000 as a budget balancing solution. After closer examination, and Anika working with the groups and determining what we can actually count in this bucket, we're looking at $300,000. So then we have to adjust our budget balancing solutions by the difference of $100,000. Similarly, with targeted groups, we believe we can score $60,000 and not the $100,000 that we had proposed. And that's still in conversation. Janika is correct. So when you're looking at what we had brought to you earlier, this is now going in the opposite direction. It's not it's a reduction in the proposals that we had brought earlier, but it also demonstrates staff's deeper thinking and deeper analysis of various proposals. And as our assumptions change, then our target and our proposals will change accordingly. So this is $301,000 of change going in the opposite direction. But for transparency, we're counting, we're going to look at the impact on the target of this change. And as Anika stated, we're still looking at the $300,000 for college readiness and the $60,000 for targeted groups. Next slide. So now we're going to look at the target slides after these changes that we just discussed. So you can see that the May 14th is impacting phase 3. So we had thought we could score $1.3 million and $500,000 as one time. And these two changes, we're reducing those by the $140,000 I shared with you earlier, as well as the one times for furloughs. What does that do to our target? We were at $1.3 million. We're now looking for $1.6 million to close the target, or to reach the $7.6 million target that we have. On the next slide, we're doing a representation in terms of phases and strategies. And on the next slide, you can see that it ties to the amount that we're needing, the 1.6 million. So going in the wrong direction, but updating for revised information that we got and how it impacts the target. Next slide. This is a graphic representation that ties to the previous slide that I showed. Next slide. So now that brings us to phase 5. Are there any questions before I move on to phase 5? So we have very few meetings left, and we're still looking for $1.6 million. So in phase 5, I'll be sharing proposals. There's some one-times. There's some expenses that came to our attention that we have to deduct this amount by, but I'll take you through each line item, and if you'll hold your questions until I'm finished with all of them, we can go back and discuss things. We can go back and revisit anything that you have questions on. Okay? So the first one is actually shifting in funding sources for our DSA position downstairs. Right now, that position is 1.0 district funded, and then it's a 0.8 funded by the after school. But because of the overlap, what we really need in that position is a person from 1 to 4 doing district work, and then the adult school needs help from 4 until 9:30 Monday through Thursdays, and they don't need any help on Fridays. So what we're proposing, because our the DSA is actually working for adult school staff as well, that we shift we shift the hours from 1 to 4 p.m. As a funding change to be paid for by the adult school. So we're not changing the position for the general fund position. We're changing the funding source for the hours that we're serving both the general fund and the adult school from Mondays through Thursdays, and we estimate that will be a savings of about $25,000. We're also looking at transferring the funding for partial VP, vice principal for BSEP PD. It's a swap, and Jill can speak to this in more detail if you have questions, but it's a one-time savings of $12,000 that we're scoring here. This other one, we can, I think Anika or Jessica may speak to this in more detail, but we have an opportunity to work with Alameda County Office of Ed to do a fee-based reimbursement program for eligible students. And this was presented to Cabinet and has been around for a while. We're in phase 2 of this program. And we now understand that phase 1 recipients are actually getting funded. So when we're looking at, there is a link to this that we can actually share with you in, this is, you wouldn't see it in your copy because it's a cut and paste, but we can actually share the ACOE capacity grant. And we're estimating a conservative $250,000 ongoing for the unrestricted general fund. So this would be scored as a revenue generator. The other thing that we revisited is the district-wide furlough, lesser impact, that should say, of employees earning 125, not 165. So we shared that information. I shared that information with you on an earlier slide. And sorry, I need to drink some water. Sorry. Excuse me. So looking at the impact of that, Matt was correct. It is a larger dollar amount for one day, but you see it's scored as a one-time savings. So yes, we'd rather have ongoing savings, but we'll take what we can. We know we'll have to reconsider next year, but for now, we're looking at this as a one-time savings of $459,000. This next one is a new idea that that was shared with us with facilities, and they're working with a consultant who's looking at our PG&E bills in more detail, and they determined that the city of Berkeley were charging us a tax. It's a city tax that's managed through the city of Berkeley, and they're taxing us on PG&E bills, and we estimate that amount to be $150,000 per year. So in our current budget, we would be scoring the $150,000 as an ongoing, but we can go back 2 years to recoup the overcharge or the over charge of the taxes for 2 years. So altogether, we're scoring 450, 300,000 as one time, and 150 as an ongoing expense. That kind of is the positive side of the budget balancing solutions. Along with that, we have to deduct expenses that have come to our attention. And for full transparency, we're listing it here because that's going in the wrong direction for our target. So we are already our telephone system is at the end of its useful life. I think we can no longer get new equipment. We can no longer update the software. So our IT department has done an RFP for a new phone system. There was some debate as to whether we needed physical phones at every desk. We understand a lot of staff use physical phones in the central office, and it's a requirement at the sites. So after a lot of after talking to Max and looking at his budget, we're determining that it's going to cost $300,000. $200,000 can be funded by his by the bond measure, so it's other funds. But there's an ongoing cost, a net ongoing cost of $100,000 that we would have to be scoring as a budget ask in 25, 26, and moving forward. Let's see, what is this one now? This is actually the change in the COLA. The governor has shared with us what the COLA is going to be. I am going to the governor's workshop on the 21st to get additional information. Right now, this COLA would actually be impacting the target, but we're just scoring it here for convenience. So we're going to be short $143,000 as based on the COLA. And fingers crossed, we'll be getting some additional funding for TK and some funding from the block grant. But I will be sharing that with you after I get that information on the 21st. But we're actually scoring this 143 here as an expense. And then Jill had indicated that there's going to be a slight ongoing cost for the two-way TWI ongoing expenses of $16,000. That's going to be a unrestricted general fund cost ongoing. And that is the focus that I want us to that's what I want us to kind of focus on, because it's an unrestricted general fund. We're running out of time to talk about all the other programs, but included here for transparency, Matt, let me finish. So for the non-unrestricted general fund, we talked about LEAP. the 168, we had shared the data with you. That's not impacting the unrestricted general fund. The TWI implementation that was shared with the board at the August 30th board meeting, and the costs came directly from that presentation, and that's going to be funded by restricted funds. So what I want to call your attention to is the impact to the unrestricted general fund. The $165,000 is the net impact after paying for our costs and looking at the additional benefits or the additional scoring for our target. And then we do have one time of $771,000. So that's our focus, and I'd prefer if we had questions just on the unrestricted general fund, and then for the non-unrestricted general fund, we can take other questions. So Matt has a question, and we can take questions now.
Great, thank you. Really interesting seeing all these new ideas. I had a question about the fee-based reimbursements capacity grant. And I don't know all the details here. I thought that money gets funneled back into like student services and not unrestricted general fund. I could be wrong. Again, I don't know the details of this. And the other piece is I believe that the amount, unless there's a restriction from ACOE, they can be brought in based on the number of counselors and all the work that they're doing is actually much higher than $250,000. I mean, I think even at the high school alone, it could be $1 million. And so I'm just wondering your thoughts on that.
So two things, and I'm not sure, Jessica, if you're still here, but I will start. So yes, you're correct. The dollars that come in are supposed to be used to continue those services. That said, we pay for counselors, we pay for other resources that then support students directly. So in that way is why we're scoring it for the general fund. Specifically around the number, we are being very conservative. Of course, we would love if the floodgates open, Matt, and more comes in. And at the same time, we still know that they're still pretty early in this, in the implementation of this. And so we didn't want to be too ambitious with what we scored. But you are right. There is the possibility of us scoring significantly more given the work that we know we would get reimbursed for. Jessica has a lot more experience with it, actually implementing it in a previous district. So I didn't know if you wanted to add anything to that, Jessica.
No, I think, to Nikia's point, we are erring on the side of being conservative, rightfully so. It's still relatively new, and we're hoping we get to reap the benefits going forward.
Yeah. I think I would just add that there are a number of services that fall into our strategic plan pillar of wellness and belonging, which is also known and aligned with our LCAP goal number 3. And it has come up in our annual planning survey and in the conversations that we have had in PAC and doing a needs assessment for the Learning Recovery Block Grant Funds is a recognition that we have increased needs for mental health and well-being services. We've been paying for contracts with community-based agencies to serve our elementary schools. The cost of those contracts have grown exponentially since pre-COVID times. And we've been covering that on a Learning Recovery Block Grant that is going to be depleted because we are using that to cover some of the other expenses that are aligned with our LCAP goals, and we have the deficit in the LCAP. So the funding source we would want to look at that set of services that we have been using, grant funds and our LCAP funds that can't cover the total cost of our LCAP actions, to understand how we should prioritize any fees that are fee funding that we generate through this program.
Just to follow up, in theory, if we brought those elementary positions in-house, then we as the district could recover some of that cost, right? It's not a one-to-one trade-off, of course, which means that like really, if they were doing that work and billing the county, then really the cost per mental health counselor would be significantly low to the district compared to what we're paying now in terms of contractors. Just correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, that's a little bit of a complicated answer because in some instances with our community-based programs, we have counselors, but they come with some interns. And so we have FTE, basically the equivalent of FTE that might not cost as much if we had the same equivalent in FTE. So I'd have to work out the math, but I think it is important to know that we have really worked with our community-based agencies and our own BUSD staff who hold the position of counselor to understand how we can maximize those services. I think Berkeley High is a good example. We had a number of wellness services that lived in different parts of the campus. And I think the work under Vice Principal Bracamontes, the opening of the Wellness Center, and really looking at how we can achieve some efficiencies of scale and, you know, and what that might look like. So lots of things coming.
Thank you.
Beatrice, Miss Beatrice.
Yes, I was curious about the TWI implementation and expenses. Curious,
Yeah.
you spoke about it in 4:30, presented, but I don't recall what that was. And the other two questions in terms of other places that perhaps may have already looked and talked about is purchasing and cost savings, maybe with cost sharing with other small districts like Albany and Emeryville, El Cerrito, which are close by to us. If you've looked at that, they're especially large purchases like toilet paper, paper towels.
Yeah, I could speak a little bit to the our purchasing. So we usually have a contract. We either piggyback or we join with other districts in terms of maximizing our purchasing power. We're already doing that. There's probably more opportunity for us to be doing that, but that's something we could follow up with our purchasing department. So
good. The other part,
Yeah,
I'm getting that you got that money from the city of Berkeley. The other one is an energy savings. Have you done an audit on facilities and where we're, you know, using a lot of energy and electricity, and have we done that as a district?
We did that a few years ago, Beatrice. I think when you were on the board. Steve can possibly talk about that. We scored the savings for trying to bring more, to be more efficient with our electricity, but that was some time ago. And since then, our costs have been going up. I work with a company called Schooling Mitchell that looks at our various invoices, and to the extent that there are savings, we do a cost splitting with them. And when he's identified savings, we've reduced our invoices accordingly. We have 4 minutes left.
Okay, that was my two questions.
So I don't know. Can we? Anybody else has any more questions? Mildred has.
Want me to answer the TWI question really quick?
Yeah, go ahead and answer that quickly. Then we'll go to Ms. Mildred, then we'll wrap, Pauline.
All right. So as you all are aware, we've gone through an elementary curriculum adoption this year. For our curriculum materials, there will be some ongoing. So for the TWI program, Arriba la Lectura and Esperanza, the startup costs we're covering through the AMIM grant, which is great. That grant is expiring next year. It's an appropriate use of those funds. But ongoing, there will be some materials costs. So that's about $12,000 a year for Arriba la Lectura and $4,500 for Esperanza, which is a pretty nominal cost for ongoing, but we need to make sure that we've identified a funding source for that.
Ms. Mildred.
Thank you. It's really concerning to even see this phase five, and I was just really looking down this list and all the things that we're looking at now, and I'm trying to understand: are we in a deficit? number one, are we truly in a deficit? What is the current deficit amount? And is the board aware that we're in a deficit? Because last night I'm confused on the way they voted if we're in a deficit, because I'm just confused. Seriously, I'm not even being funny. I'm being truly honest here.
I hear you.
The way they voted, it appears that if we're truly in a deficit, their vote makes no sense, because we wouldn't be here. So I would like to know what's the deficit amount, actually.
So, Ms. Mildred, I can't speak to the board and how the board voted. You saw what staff presented, and staff presented a lot of information that was consistent with what we've presented with you all this evening, and then also try to answer some questions. So I won't be able to speak to that part. We are not in a deficit at the moment, right? We are trying to avoid being in a deficit by making sure that we submit to our board a balanced budget, a proposal for a balanced budget, which incorporates both cost savings as well as some revenue generators. I will let Pauline add more to it, but I just want to make sure I'm clear. We're not, and Pauline, I'm gonna say it, we're not in a deficit yet. We are trying to avoid being in the deficit, and that the target represents a deficit that we would be in if we continue with business as usual.
Thank you for that.
So two things, Mildred. The positions that were mentioned, fortunately, well, not fortunately, but there was no direct hit or impact to the unrestricted general fund, because they were looking at other funding sources for the positions that were mentioned, which is why I want us to kind of focus on the unrestricted general fund. And when you're saying a deficit, we are deficit spending to spend on what balance we have, but we don't have a negative ending fund balance, and that's what we're trying to avoid when we're looking at all of these proposals to meet the 7.6 target. When we take it to the board, they have the final vote in terms of what they're going to be voting on for all our proposals. And as staff, we're just making these proposals, looking at our operations to find out where there are savings, where we can use our strategies that we identified to meet the $7.6 million target. Does that help?
I understand.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
thanks. So let's go to the next slide. So this kind of will help address Mildred's question. Sort of, where are we after all of phases 1 through 5, after we've made our adjustments and introduced phase 5? So we're looking at $600,000, $628,714 still remains to be filled, which is really good considering we started with a $7.6 million target. But as you can see, $1.1 million, phase 5 added 771 as one time. So even though $1.1 million is one time, and we prefer everything to be ongoing, the amounts that remaining after phases 1 through 5, we're looking at $626,000 or $600,000. And on the next slide, Vivian, we present again, we've just summarized the phases. Now we've added phase 5. And you can see that on the next page where we are showing that shortfall of the $628,000. So with that, we can go to the next slide, and we can and this is a graphic representation that ties to the previous slide. And I think it's important for us to look at the different strategies that we're using and the different steps that we're taking. Revenue generating has produced $2.2 million, and unfortunately, not all of that is ongoing. But this is a summary of what we have done to date in phases 1 through 5. And as a reminder, these are staff's proposals, and the board does have to vote on it on our final proposals as we take them to build our 25-26 budget. Next slide. Yes, Nicole.
Just to clarify, so thank you so much for all of your work, clearly, through this process. Just to clarify, the outstanding items from phase 4, when are we going to do an advisory vote on that at the next meeting, or what's the timeline around that one?
We
Awesome.
have to bring it all back. The next meeting is the next meeting, unless you all add more meetings. The next meeting is the big meeting.
What I thought we
Right.
could do, Anika, is to send out a poll to people that they could look at while we're before the next meeting.
Information.
So they could kind of give us feedback on phase 5. They've gotten additional information on the items that were outstanding. So we'll have them revisit those before we start having them trying to tier or rank the different proposals.
And Nicole, it's both. It's both of the next meeting and likely some things in the interim between now and the next meeting.
Great, thank you.
Really quickly, I know it's 6:04. Updates for you all. Just speaking of thinking about the March 15th notices. If you go to slide 46, Ms. Vivian, we wanted to just give you the final update. May 15th, remember, is the deadline to notify personnel of the final decision. You might recall that we had originally 383 staff members who were noticed across all bargaining units and across, including unrepresented employees. So of that 383, we did a final notice to 16.9 FTE or 18 individuals. And so just want to take your words, Nicole, about thanking folks for their hard work. I just want to recognize the team and not just the team that you hear and see here, but also we worked really closely with our labor partners who are here, but also with many members of our staff and how might we and trying to figure it out. And I said that we were going to rescind as many notices as possible, as soon as possible. And so to go from, the high hundreds to 16.9 is a lot of work. Everybody matters and everyone's important. And so this has been difficult, but wanted to give you all that update. So 16.9 FTE or 18 individuals from our classified family, and then 2.6 FTE or 3 individuals for our certificated families for those who were on PKS. So I wanted to give you that update because I know that was information that you all were tracking pretty closely. I think I saw a hand or a question so the next meeting is before Pauline goes to, no, Jay is the next, Pauline, when is the governor's update? We're going there next week. I don't know. I don't know.
The 21st.
Yeah, so it won't be, our next SBAC is
the 20th, according to the slide deck.
Then you're right. This is why we keep you around, Jay. You're right. It is before. Our next meeting is right before the governor's update. You are right. Oh, man, that time is not really good.
But, Jay, hopefully we'll get some more information from school services or just from ACOE before they meet the 21st. But that's, we always rely on that meeting to kind of like get all the details. I agree with Vicky. We need to add another meeting.
So what we can do, Vicky, is we can send out a poll to see folks' availability for an additional meeting. So with the information that Pauline just talked about, we'll also send out a poll just to see folks' availability, because another meeting will be nice because we have a lot still to do. And hopefully at that next meeting, we can provide an update. Can you go to slide 48, please, Ms. Vivian? So really quickly, again, on the 21st, we will get the governor's update. What we know already is that the COLA was reduced by 0.143%, approximately $143,000 for our budget. What's next is we're going to go to that revised update and hopefully come back with great news. We know we're going to get an update on TK, the Block grant funding that we told you about earlier, maybe in phase 2, as well as what is for, are there any restrictions, and what Berkeley's allocation will be. And then, of course, we will revise our target accordingly. So we might be coming back to you with a new and different target, hopefully a significantly lower target if things work out as we hope. That said, I was just looking at something from Ed Trust, and it's not looking too good, y'all. So just, again, having a transparent moment. I think Jay must have saw the same thing I saw because he's shaking his head. It's not looking good. And so it's good for us that we continue to plan for stormy weather and move towards our target and not, there was some temptation to be hopeful and say, we're going to get the money, and we didn't. So we'll have more information for you all at the upcoming meeting about that. Next slide. And what we want to do at our final meeting, be it on the 20th, or be it that we add an additional meeting on the 28th. The 4th is the board meeting, so we want to do it before the 4th, is that we really want to work with you all to answer any outstanding questions, to really get your feedback on the various proposals, and then to tier the proposals. So if the governor's budget comes back with a certain number, what would we take off the list of budget balancing? So we're going to work through some tiering with you all for our final meeting in advance of us then using that information to create the final budget. We are planning to share a draft. When are we going to show the board our budget, Pauline?
I think the first reading is June 4th.
June 4th. So that May 20.
Right.
So that 4th won't work at all, Vicki. The 28th would be the everything, if not sometime before that. But again, we'll get a poll out. We did have you all do those straw polls. We have more things for you to do straw polls on, because some of it you need more information and some of it's new. And then we have to tier to find out what you want to do, or what you recommend that we do with the different proposals that we have. So again, our next meeting as of now, next slide, is on the 20th. We're going to come back and start thinking about tiering the proposals pending the governor's budget. And that is it. We want to remind you all that the links to all the previous meetings are always on our appendix slide, which on this deck is on slide 52, as well as other information that might be helpful for you all. I don't know if you all watched the board meeting. Maybe you don't. We did a budget update to our board, and I actually shouted you all out as really thoughtful partners who don't just kind of throw spaghetti on the wall and see if it sticks, or come up with like different crazy ideas. Like, I feel like this group really is respectful to the complexity that is school and school district budgeting, and understands a lot of the nuances. Still, there's a lot that you don't understand, and that's fine. We only meet like once every couple of weeks. But use you all as an example of the thoughtful questions that you ask us when we say we might cut this. You're like, how is that going to impact the work? What work is going to stop happening? Who's going to do this work if you remove this position? So just wanted to say that to you all directly, that I think you're an amazing group of thought partners. I think you have great ideas, but I think you also kind of help us think differently and better, and kind of help us generate even better ideas on behalf of our babies. So with much appreciation and gratitude, I bid you good evening, and we will see you for sure on the 14th. I'm sorry, the 20th, but maybe at some time either before or immediately after that. There's an AAPI Heritage event right now at Longfellow. If you're on your way there, I will see y'all there. Bye. Good night.
And the multi-film reclassification celebration.
Good night.